Thank you so much for tuning into my show, William Wallace for America. In this episode of my show, I decided to do a video on House Bill 7 in Louisiana, how it's going to affect the people in Louisiana, but even scarier, how it may affect the rest of America. The Louisiana legislators in Louisiana, with House Bill 7, have set a precedent to allow private property to be used by business and industry via eminent domain against the people's will has been set. And the bar has been lowered, or shall I say, hidden underground, because legislators killed House Bill 7, which would have protected private property rights and not allowed business and industry to use eminent domain for carbon capture sequestration. Before I continue with this, I want to make sure I give you a definition of what precedent means. I know most of you know this answer, but just to emphasize for everyone and the people in the back, a precedent is an earlier event or action that is regarded as an example or guide to be considered in subsequent or future similar circumstances, which means if it happened in the past, or if it was allowed to happen in the past, certainly they can allow it to happen again. Keep that in mind. It used to be that, in short explanation, a government could basically force you to sell their land for something that would be for the common good, like a road or a bridge. But here, legislators in Louisiana have diminished private property rights. While they will say no, or not by much, or even that it doesn't matter, even that they move the needle a little is too much. As I have explained on previous shows, that I think eminent domain should never have been interpreted from the Constitution, and it was a huge stretch in the first place. Our founding fathers would never have allowed our government to take private property. They would never have created a backdoor access to our freedoms and liberties called a takings clause. Men who fought, died, and risked their lives and fortunes for this country against the most powerful country in the world would never have said, and let's carve out this little exception to people's private property rights with a way for the government to take it. And especially when they spent their lives wanting the government to have less power than the people. Attempts have been made around the country with many examples for businesses, industry, or commercial use, like a shopping mall. Many attempts have been made to use eminent domain for those examples, and case after case has fallen to the rights of the people. Government has had the bragging rights to have exclusive rights to eminent domain, but 12 people in the Natural Resources Committee in the Louisiana legislature have decided that a business or industry should have the rights to private property. Whatever reasons they each had for this vote does not matter. I am sure most of them received phone calls, but they still did not vote to protect private property. I'm not going to name names. I am not doing this video to call out any particular representative. As a matter of fact, I know almost all of them, and I know all of them to be good people and caring individuals. I think the system, victories, or the quest for victories, and the political process became the focus instead of individual rights. But because a precedent has been set with the killing of this bill, the people's rights to land ownership have been diminished in America. I want more people to realize this and open their eyes to the freedoms we are losing, the rights we are being stripped of, and how this will affect us in the future. While many legislators and others in the know will look at the rest of us and they'll probably say things like, "This is all folly," and of course we are just the plebes and the ones who don't know anything. They'll say you, or we in this case, are the little people, and they are smarter than us. We are the little people that put them there to take care of us, and we don't deserve to have the say otherwise. But it is they that made the team, and we don't know how to play the game. They are using the Constitution as their game board to play Monopoly with our freedoms. Behind our backs and to our face, they will say, all that talk you all have of property rights, freedom, and liberty, and how bad sequestration is under the land is talk by people who don't know how much we know, or how much they know, rather, or how much they'll say they know. And of course, it's all about how they get the deals done. Again, I don't care about the collection of or if CO2 gets stored. I am only against the eminent domain aspect of it because it will open bigger doors later against other people's property rights. I hope this will awaken people to what is going on, not just here in Louisiana, but all over our country. We should have stopped in Louisiana, and we didn't. And it's also happening in Washington, D.C., as it all pertains to personal property rights. You need to know how little they care about our rights, our liberties, and our private property, because as long as the deal gets done and they get their political ass covered, that's all they care about. And here is where we really get hurt. Here is the biggest problem of all: precedent. Why? Because once it has been made, it will make the case for more of it later. Big industry got to win with the use of eminent domain. Is it going to stop? Is there going to be, are there going to be other examples later where someone's private property is in jeopardy or is in risk of big industry? But of course, big industry can always point to House Bill 7 and say, that's the reason we need to get it. Or they'll look at how the process happened that got HB 7 killed, and they'll just repeat it over and over again for every situation that they need to have access or use of eminent domain for someone's personal property. Do you ever hear of a judge, or did you ever hear of a judge that made a ruling that sounded really bad, wrong, or even against someone's rights? Very often their reasoning is because precedent was made by another judge or a higher court or a similar ruling made on a similar case. That sounds lazy to me and against what our Constitution paved the way for, to protect our rights through blind justice. But if we don't stop it here, and we didn't, it can only happen again. As in the case of what this committee did in Louisiana, they laid the groundwork, making it easier for future decisions by judges, legislators, governors, and other municipalities to take the property of citizens, because they can claim precedent that had happened here in HB 7 and possibly in other cases that are a result of HB 7 getting killed. Once it happens once, it opens the door and makes it easier to happen again. And it will, possibly in Louisiana, or it'll be used in other parts of our country. And someone will point to HB 7 as the reason for it in the future. I am sure that legislators that voted against personal property all did it in the name of protecting the sacred cow of oil and gas. And I'm not against oil and gas. I'm against the use of eminent domain by any company or industry, and even our government. Do you want to know where good bills go to die? They go to a committee. Committees are dangerous, and I think they were designed to kill legislation, delay the process, safeguard power, almost as a tool in the political process. So think of this: a committee of a few people decided to kill HB 7 and circumvent the Democrat part of our government by not allowing it to get voted on by the entire legislature. Committees were sold way back as an efficient way to navigate the process, but really they are just a slaughterhouse for the purity of our democratic process. Here, I'm going to give you a couple things to think about that I looked up when it comes to committees. Committees are dangerous. Committees can be inefficient, prone to dreadlock, or even dangerous to governance, has been expressed by several notable figures and commentators over the time. A committee is a place where the best man is always absent. And another one, a committee should consist of 3 people, one of whom is always sick and the other always absent. In political discourse, critics of committee systems, especially in the legislative bodies, often warn that they can become tools for obstruction, protect the status quo, or concentrate power in unelected or unaccountable hands. For example, in modern political debates, opponents of certain committees have described them as dangerous when they bypass democratic processes or concentrate authority without political accountability. Since we all know that the oil and gas industry is the sacred cow of Louisiana, so much still gets through the cracks, the legislature, and the halls of the governor's mansion, all in the name of oil and gas, especially when it gets filed with federal tax credits. And the killing of HB 7 was analogous to calling it friendly fire to excuse the weakening of private property rights and calling it just collateral damage. Let me say emphatically that I am all for the oil and gas industry. And even though I think carbon capture is a stupid idea, and I think the sequestration of it is even dumber, I actually don't care if big industry wants to capture it, but it wouldn't exist if it weren't for federal tax credits. And I don't even care if they want to use CO2 for fracking or storage under the Gulf of America. What I am against is the permission by a few people in a committee to allow businesses to use eminent domain to store it by them having killed HB 7 and indefinitely deferring it. I care that some of our legislators and elected officials are willing to allow eminent domain to be used by business and industry and take people's property for private use and profit by robbing them of their mineral rights, because that's really what's in question here, all because politicians will use this example as an asset to secure deals to gain them favor and win elections. It's lazy. It's a lazy process. They did it the lazy way. And I'll be clear on this. They're taking the private property rights because once they pump carbon capture using eminent domain under people's property, people will lose access to their mineral rights. So instead of protecting people's property and finding another way for the businesses to find places to store it, they chose the easy path or the lazy path, like I said earlier, to kill private property rights in a committee and set a precedent for the future. They can now store CO2 under your property without your permission, tell you it's safe, and maybe it is safe in the environment for trees and such. But what if other things get mixed in those lines that they're using to pump the CO2 underneath your property? Oh, that will never happen, right? Your property rights are almost as sacred as the next election. But with plumes of CO2 stored in your area, you are likely to lose access to your mineral rights. And that's how they are stealing your property rights. And hopefully, your water aquifer won't be tainted. Now, you won't easily find who voted to allow industry to steal your property rights through sequestration via eminent domain, because legislators a while back made sure that the votes weren't made public on the legis.la.gov cite unless you go to the particular committee, find the time that that bill was tried, find the video, and go to the end of the video of the committee meeting and listen to how they voted. But there are some groups that are posting how people voted on HB 7. So again, they know better than us, right? That's why they are in office, right? As representatives of the deals that need to get done, because the little people don't know better. They have much bigger games to play and bigger people to answer to than us. I was told this bill was bad because it could stop companies from getting to certain properties that may be landlocked or in areas that they need to go through. And I'll finish on this point, a point that I made to a legislator, that eminent domain disproportionately affects minorities, poor people, and small businesses. And I was told that there are not enough people in those categories and that their district needed economic development. Obviously, economic development and a lazy process were more important than finding a way to help business and industry without taking people's property rights via eminent domain. Eminent domain via private industry has been fought all over America. And what has happened with the killing of HB 7 in this 2026 Louisiana legislative session has set a precedent in Louisiana and set a lower mark for businesses in other states to have to hurdle for and get examples for them to win victories over private property rights. Huey Long would definitely feel outdone. All right, my friends, thank you so much for the time listening. Please share this video with someone else that you think might be interested in hearing more about how our property rights, not only in Louisiana, but how a precedent has been set to take property rights all over America.